Dobro jutro, hvala vam što ste došli na ovu presicu koju zapravo imamo ispred Odbora za zdravstvo. Naime, u cijeloj Europskoj uniji svjedočimo ubrzanim promjenama na tržištu droge. Pojavljuje se velik broj novih psihoaktivnih tvari, njihova dostupnost i njihove kombinacije su sve složenije. U nekim državama Europske unije bilježi se i porast smrtnosti povezan s predoziranjima, kao i brže širenje različitih i novih obrazaca konzumacije droga. Upravo je to razlog zbog kojeg je osnovana nova Europska agencija za droge, koja sada ima puno snažniji mandat u području praćenja, ranog upozoravanja i koordinacije odgovora. Što se tiče Hrvatske, to znači da više ne možemo čekati da nam se problem dogodi, nego moramo imati razvijen sustav pripravnosti, sposobnost da prepoznamo rizike, da brzo razmijenimo informacije i da odmah reagiramo. Naša obaveza je i doprinos europskom sustavu ranog upozoravanja, jer zapravo, kao što znate, droge često i ne poznaju granice i samo zajedničkim radom možemo zaštititi zdravlje i sigurnost građana. Uloga Hrvatskog sabora u tome je ključna. Kroz zakonodavstvo, kroz osiguravanje političke potpore i kroz nadzor provedbe. I to nacionalne strategije koju imamo do 2030. i akcijskog plana koji vrijedi do iduće godine. Potrebno je osigurati ključne resurse, od laboratorijske opreme do stručnih kadrova, kao i brzu i učinkovitu koordinaciju svih nadležnih tijela. Dakle, Hrvatski sabor mora biti jamac da ta pripravnost ne ostane samo na papiru, nego da naš sustav zaista je u stanju i prepoznati i predvidjeti i spriječiti nove prijetnje na području droga. A danas ćemo imati odmah nakon ove presice 22. tematsku sjednicu Odbora za zdravstvo i socijalnu politiku na temu upravo pripravnosti Republike Hrvatske na nove prijetnje u području droga. I na njoj će govoriti, tu su sa mnom i ja ću ih sada zamoliti da vam se i obrate, i gospodin Alexis Goosdeel, on je ravnatelj Agencije Europske unije za droge i to već gotovo 10 godina. Zatim ću zamoliti magistra Petkovića koji je pomoćnik ravnatelja Hrvatskog zavoda za javno zdravstvo i na koncu gospodina Tomislava Štambuka koji je kriminalist iz policijski službenik ravnateljstva policije. Evo ga, izvolite, neka vam se oni obrate.
Okay. Dobar dan. Good morning, everyone. I want to thank the chair of the parliamentary committee. It's a great honor and great pleasure to be back to Zagreb today with you. Indeed, my first contact with the Croatian authorities and colleagues was more than 20 years ago, 25 years ago soon. And at that time we started discussing and preparing, seeing how we can help prepare Croatia for accession to the EU as far as drugs are concerned, and as far as the participation in the European Drugs Agency is concerned. And I must say, first of all, that first we got always full support from your committee before accession and certainly after, which is extremely important. As the president of the committee has said, we have an increase and new challenges in the drug situation in Europe. What we used to say is that today drugs are everywhere in Europe, whether they are increasing quantities coming from outside the EU to the territory of the European Union. But the European Union has also become a major producer of drugs. One of them, ecstasy. Europe is the global producer and exporting everywhere in the world. But we have also many other substances. We have more or less 450 illicit laboratories that are dismantled every year. And through the early warning system that the President mentioned, in December last year, over the last 27 years, we have detected 1,000 new substances that had never appeared on the drug market before. And out of those 1,000 substances, we have more or less 400, 450 that appear here and there on the territory of the European Union. And of course, when we say everything, it's because today everything can be used as a drug, and the all distinctions, soft drugs, hard drugs, even licit, illicit, or vegetal or chemical, do not encompass the complexity of the situation. And of course today, polysubstance use is the new standard for those who are consuming. which increases also the risks and potential harms and risk for overdoses that are associated. And finally, when we mention everyone, it is because today, more than ever, especially if we also include alcohol consumption, everyone can now meet personally or indirectly someone who has either acute or chronic problem of addiction or dependence or addictive behavior. And what is new in the last 7 to 8 years is the increase in violence that is associated to drug trafficking. And here, the major difference when we speak about violence is 10 years ago, when we discussed with all the member states and the European Commission in Brussels about a strategy for drug-related violence, actually we were talking about drug violence in Central America. Today we are talking about Europe and the European Union, which means that it's time to upscale our efforts. And one of the decisions that has been taken by the member states, the European Commission and the Parliament, with the support and active participation of Croatia, is the creation, the strengthening of our agency and transforming our agency into a stronger European Union drugs agency. And really, the objective, as the president of the committee said, is to help increase our awareness and our preparedness. And in that sense, this committee is playing a very important role, but I would say that my personal experience working with Croatia for almost 25 years now is that the parliament itself played an important role, all the committees, and including the key role for the Ministry of Health, but also for the Ministry of Interior. And I would say that today, and one of the topics we are going to discuss today and tomorrow, is to present you what are the new services that together we are providing to the member states and ultimately to your citizens. And I think for those plans, we will need also to highlight what does it mean as the next step in our cooperation to help save lives together with public health, public safety, Ministry of Health and Social Affairs, but also Ministry of Interior. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Evo, zahvaljujem gospodinu Goosdeelu i sad bih zamolila gospodina Petkovića da nam se obrati.
Dobro jutro svima, evo ja vas sve skupa lijepo pozdravljam u ime Hrvatskog zavoda za javno zdravstvo i zahvaljujem na interesu za temu koja se odnosi na droge. Situacija vezana uz problematiku droge zadnjih nekoliko godina u Europi je postala sve kompliciranija i na neki način ponuda raste i potražnja, što je onako sociološki fenomen, a uz to raznolikost droga je sve veća i veća. Ono što posebice zabrinjava da potentnost, znači ona koncentracija droge koja se pojavljuje na tržištu je veća, primjenjuju se različita punila i sve to skupa zajedno u kombinaciji sa nekim drugim sredstvima ovisnosti poput alkohola predstavlja vrlo velik izazov za cijeli zdravstveni sustav. Ono o čemu smo razmišljali da jednostavno stvari probamo nekako okrenuti drugačije, da jednostavno ne čekamo da se nešto desi, nego da jednostavno razmišljamo što unaprijed možemo učiniti kako bismo spriječili da dođe do tragičnih posljedica. Svima je poznata situacija Sjedinjenih Američkih Država, svima je poznata situacija vezana uz sintetske opijate koje dolaze u Europu i pitanje je kada će i u kojoj mjeri znači doći do njihove pojave i na našem tržištu. Smatramo da samo zajedničkim djelovanjem i zdravstvenog sustava i ostalih sustava i naravno sustava Ministarstva unutarnjih poslova možemo doprinijeti da situacija vezana s problematiku droga bude bolja, odnosno da spriječimo sve one fatalne posljedice. Znači govorimo o smrtima, zaraznim bolestima koje prate znači samo konzumiranje droga. Ali kažem, kako god okrenuli, svaka konzumacija droga u ovim uvjetima kad jednostavno ni sami ne znamo što je sve na tržištu može biti fatalno i može završiti kobno. Evo, hvala vam.
Hvala vam puno i zamolila bi još gospodina Štambuka iz policije da nam se također obrati.
Dobro jutro, pozdrav. Hvala da mogu tu reći par riječi u ime ravnateljstva policije. Evo, kao što je direktor agencije rekao, situacija u Europi je zabrinjavajuća, tako je slična situacija u Hrvatskoj. Iz policijske perspektive možemo reći da je droge sve više na ulicama, možda više nego ikad. Kokain produkti kanabisa, sintetske droge su nam glavni dominantni problem u ovom momentu. Također imamo mnogo dinamičnu, izraženu dinamiku pojave MPS-a, znači novih psihotropnih tvari. Osim toga, ponude potražnje su također u porastu i možemo reći da to sve skup prati trendove u Europskoj uniji. Međutim, mi ko policija se suočavamo sa borbom protiv zločinačkih udruženja koji su odgovorni za distribuciju te droge, tako da ta udruženja kao što je Balkanski kartel, koji moram istaknuti, je vrlo velika prijetnja još uvijek za cijelu Europu, kao jedan najvećih uvoznika kokaina u Europu. On je jedna prilagodljiva zločinačka udruženje koje je sve otpornije na naše akcije, a djeluje globalno. Kao takav generira veliki profit, znači enormni profit koji dolazi od droge, još uvijek najveći u sferi organiziranog kriminala, a profit kao profit generira nažalost korupciju i pranje novca. Korupcija i pranje novca su možda i najopasniji društveno za jednu malu Hrvatsku, ali i za cijelu Europu. Usprkos svim tim zabrinjavajućim trendovima s kojima se susrećemo, ja mogu reći na neki način sa zadovoljstvom da nema eskalacije pokazatelja koja bi ukazivali na narušavanje neke opće sigurnosti u Hrvatskoj, tako da mogu biti zadovoljan sa zadaćama koje policija obavlja i mogu samo obećati da ćemo mi nastaviti dalje tako raditi. Hvala.
Hvala gospodinu Štambuku. Ako imate pitanja za bilo koga od prisutnih, izvolite.
Ja bih pitao gospodina Petkovića i gospodina Goosdeela vezano uz pojavnost novih droga. Svi ste istaknuli da je to doista veliki problem, kako za tržište, tako i za stanovništvo. Nova takozvana zombi droga. O njoj se dosta pričalo u zadnje vrijeme uz sumnje da postoji u Sloveniji, da se konzumira. Ima li kakvih indicija da se pojavila i u Hrvatskoj?
Ako govorimo o fentanilu, pretpostavljam sada nemamo nekakvih indicija, znači nije bilo zapljena, znači to isto može potvrditi kolega Štambuk za sada, ali kažem, svrha cijele ove priče, ovog današnjeg sastanka je da na neki način sustave spojimo, zajednički razgovaramo i da na neki način budemo spremni za njezin dolazak. Jednostavno, mislim, naivno bi bilo očekivati da će nas nešto što se dešava u okolici zaobići. I to je cijela svrha ovog koncepta, da se jednostavno promijeni, znači način razmišljanja, da jednostavno krenemo u drugom smjeru i da budemo spremni za ono što nas čeka. Znači da se maksimalno pripremimo, ali kažem, nikad nećemo biti 100% spremni, ali možemo razmišljati, možemo učiniti nešto da zaštitimo, znači, zdravlje građana. Jer ako se dođe do pojave, nama je kao zdravstveni sustav bitno da takva pojava ne prouzroči smrti, širenje zaraznih bolesti i ostalih stvari, znači ti ljudi koji ipak danas sutra budu konzumirali stvari na neki način budu zaštićeni i na neki način da prežive sve to.
Mr. Goosdeel, I would like to ask you about danger of new drugs, as you stated before. In Slovenia, we had some indications recently about so-called zombie drug. Could you tell us something about it?
Yes, thank you very much for your question. Actually, as Željko said, I think what is the most important is it's to be ready, to be prepared for all or any kind of substances. Because if I remember well, and you will correct me, in one of my last visits to Croatia, I think it was February, March, somewhere, some years ago, there was just some young women, I think, who died in a party from a synthetic drugs, and there was a lot of discussion in the news because I think it was the daughter of someone famous in Croatia, and until then everybody was saying, well, we have no synthetic drugs in Croatia. I think we should avoid to go back to what was the attitude in the past in the schools and the prisons. Good prisons and good schools, there was no drugs. But the reality was not that. So, as Željko Petković said, what is the most important is to say there may be no zombie drugs or any other, because there are many, and even if they are less famous than that one, they may kill equally or even more. So the question is really, how can we be prepared? And to be prepared is, for instance, to have the measures and an alert system in place that whatever kind of new drugs or new harm we could detect quickly. The second point that we are also going to discuss is with the new mission, we have also the mission to create European network of toxicology and forensic laboratories. And why is it important? Because basically when there are new substances, the logic is that we don't know yet them, and we don't know always how to detect them. And the problem is that every time you put a new substance in the machine, which is a chromatography machine, it gives you a profile. But if you don't have in the library the copy of the reference that can tell you this is zombie, or this is carfentanil, or this is something, you are blind. So one of the new missions of our agency, and we are finishing the preparatory study, is we are going to finance the production of those reference samples in order to give them to the member states and to your laboratories. So every time that there is something new happening, you will have more quickly the possibility to identify what it is. Because one of the key questions is if we want to save lives, when someone is in acute intoxication, overdose, or coma, it's a question of minutes or hours to know what is the substance, what is the antidote, what should we do. And our mission is stronger than it was before, and this is one of the topics we are going to discuss those days.
You discovered 1,000 new drugs. What about the people who consume it? Is it maybe young population, middle age? What about that?
That's also another good question. Thank you. But what I would say is that there are various substance use and patterns of substance use in the different age groups. And it also changes a bit from one country to another. And it's partly linked to the availability. For instance, I would imagine that 10 or 15 years ago, availability of cocaine in Croatia or Slovenia was much lower compared with Spain or France, because it was coming from the ocean, from across the ocean, from Latin America first to those countries. So certainly at that time, the substances, for instance, the stimulants that were used in Croatia were not the same or the same proportion than others. Also, what we see is that sometimes the patterns of consumption may change from one city to another, even in the same country, or when there are big events. I was attending the Tomorrowland festival, the music festival. It's 400,000 people gathered there in Belgium near Antwerp for 2 weekends. We have a cooperation, a specific project, and we would like to develop more the cooperation with big music festivals in the future. And there were 2 people who died from overdose. I have not received the final results, but if I remember well, what was suspected by the laboratory that was there making the analysis, probably this was highly dosed ecstasy or MDMA together with cocaine. So again, what we see today that is the standard behavior is more and more people, when they use, they don't use only one substance, they use at the same time or just after another. And as Željko Petković mentioned, the synthetic opioids. For synthetic opioids, in many cases, we see that people died from an overdose with an opioid, but frequently there was also benzodiazepine. And this is also a problem because the combination with benzodiazepine can be lethal, but also when you want to treat, for instance, there is a medicine, a drug you give, which is naloxone. If you give naloxone to resuscitate someone who is about to die from overdose with opioid, because of the other substance, it may not work as well or as good as normally it should. So the situation is complex. And also to finish, I think your question is also very important because we need to be aware when we do prevention or treatment, we need really to first find a way to have qualitative research, to listen to people who consume, to understand what they consume. Why I say that? Because there was a pilot research in Belgium. I attend the presentation of the results. There was an internet influencer cooperating with the Institute of Public Health to launch a campaign to speak about addiction. And the starting point was cocaine, because given the increase in availability and consumption in cocaine in Belgium, it was thought by the Ministry of Health that for the young people, including those through the internet, we should reach them and reach out talking about cocaine. And one of the questions from those who followed was, well, why cocaine? Because in our case, we consume more MDMA or we consume something else. So we have patents for the entire EU. We have patents at national or local level, but still, when you try to target a specific group, it's not an entire age group for the whole country that has the same patterns of consumption. So this is why we need to learn, we need to listen to those who are using to be able to adjust what are the strategies, the interventions.
Vidjeli smo u posljednjih godina, u zadnjih 10 dana bile su velike i policijske akcije, posebice po pitanju droge, preprodaje i kriminala. Kako tu sad stoji Hrvatska u suradnji sa inozemnim institucijama?
Pa Hrvatska, mogu reći da se profilira kao određeni lider u regiji, definitivno, i da sva ta složena kriminalistička istraživanja međunarodna u stvari nisu plod neke slučajnosti, nego našeg ustrajnog rada. Tako da, međutim, to je naša odgovornost, zato što u balkanskom kartelu koji sam spomenuo, hrvatski državljani imaju važnu ulogu. Tako da, s te strane smo mi preuzeli odgovornost, suočili smo se s činjenicom da su naši državljani značajniji u odnosu na broj stanovnika koje mi imamo u tom kriminalnom svijetu i mi ćemo tako nastaviti dalje raditi. Mislim da su rezultati tu, mukotrpni su, možda su nekad prespori, čini se građanima, ali nije lako dokazati zločinačko udruženje, posebice vezano na krijumčarenje droge. No? Možda samo još kratki govor vezano za te zombi droge, da se to možda malo... Znači, u Sloveniji radili su sintetski kanabinoidima, znači konkretno, jel? Koji u kombinaciji sa alkoholom često imaju tako manifestiranje, jel? Znači, to je ovo što je bilo u Mariboru, jel, na televiziji. U Americi, na primjer u Filadelfiji, imate Kenningston, poznati kvart, gdje su tisuće ljudi u takvim situacijama, jel? Na ulici se vide kako u stvari su u poziciji tih zombija, to je utjecaj uglavnom metamfetamina i fentanila. Jel? Znači, kombinacija alkohola, sintetskih kanabinoida, fentanila i metamfetamina dovodi do takvih situacija, ali to su različite kombinacije. Nažalost, sve osim fentanila je za sad evidentirano u Hrvatskoj. Jel? Tako da, tu smo, jel?
Znači, praktički realno za ono što i postoji indice da se konzumira u susjedstvu, nažalost uvijek postoji mogućnost da dođe i k nama.
Sintetski kanabinoidi se već dugo konzumiraju u Hrvatskoj, ali već to je Spice Galaxy, znači to su vrlo opasne, pogotovo za mladu generaciju, mlade ljude.